Welcome back to TNT and our series on trauma. My good friend Debbie Piper right here. We've been talking a lot on various issues, and I know in my last video I talked about our heart being held together, a scarred heart, right? Because I'm not necessarily talking about the organ heart. Or just even look at the person, just the whole entity. Scars are what they're evidence of prior injury.
Right.
And oftentimes they don't go anywhere. They might get better with the right treatment.
Right.
They can be minimized.
Therapy.
Yep. They can be minimized.
Yeah.
Ever so often, they can become invisible. At least on the surface.
Right.
Oftentimes, there's at least a little hint of them still prevailing. The reality is, trauma, whether it's done to you or whether it happened to you, cannot be undone or unhappened.
Right. Right.
So the scars have been, the injury has been caused, the scars are going to happen.
Right.
How you heal, how far you heal, how well you heal is determined by various elements. One, of course, is do you seek appropriate treatment?
Right.
Do you seek appropriate counseling? Do you go to the right persons for the right problem?
The right specialist, because interestingly enough, not all licensed mental health workers are actually trained in trauma.
That's right.
Which I heard one say just boggles her mind, because why would a person come to them except that there was some sort of trauma that they were experiencing?
Right.
Yeah. So anyway.
Yeah. So that definitely that,
Yeah,
but also the makeup of the person.
Yes.
Your own personality.
Yes.
So you could be a mover and a shaker that just absolutely, nope, I'm not going to let me get this down. I'm going to fight through this, whatever. And at least on the surface, you will seem to be.
That's you.
That's me.
That's
at least on the surface, you will seem to be plodding along. You know me, I'm the warrior girl. Everything's about fighting through, plowing through, triumphing over this. It's me every day. And the reality is, it's not me all day, every day.
Right.
It's not me on the days when I can't get out of bed. It's not me on the days when I'm just so tired of being the warrior girl.
Right.
And I just sit on the couch and say, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I know me though. Even when I say I'm done, I can't do this anymore. I know it may be a day, maybe two, maybe a week. Pretty soon I'm just going to say, I'm done sitting on the couch. I can't do this anymore. Back to fighting.
That's the Cynthia I know.
That's me. That's me. Yes, that's me.
Yes.
And so how would you classify yourself?
I have struggled with depression and anxiety all of my life. From the time I was a child, I would bite my lips to the point that they bled.
Wow.
And so the doctor, talking about dealing with surface things, the medical doctor had salves and was talking to my mom and me about what to do and all. Now, there did turn out to be some physical things, but a big part of that was anxiety, because I was living in a home filled with domestic violence. And sometimes it came at me, sometimes it came at my mom, my siblings. But I was very anxious, always on edge. And actually, one of those terms that we talk about is post-traumatic stress disorder. And so I've had that since I was a child. As a matter of fact, for me, there are still signs of it now. And I'm no longer a child.
Right.
I am past retirement age. And so...
Which is 45.
And so I have what's called chronic PTSD, so chronic post-traumatic stress disorder. And even just recently, my husband said something and I kind of snapped at him, because that was one of the defenses I learned to guard and protect myself.
Right.
Was I'm going to project things back at other people.
Right.
And he said, I didn't mean that as a criticism.
Right.
You don't need to defend yourself.
Right.
I was just stating something. But what I had learned as a child was that if anybody mentioned anything that was not perfect,
It was meant to attack you.
It was meant to attack me, and I was responsible to defend myself and to take care of that matter. And so I still find, even after decades of walking with Jesus, decades of healing, of seeing professional counselors at different times, and having close friends who are counselors, and so who just the very nature of our conversations are supportive and nurturing and helpful and healing, I still carry some of those scars. Now, interestingly for me is that I suffered from lower back pain. I still do, but for a while I went to medical doctors for my lower back pain, and they said, take medicine.
Right.
And so then when I went to a chiropractor, he said, oh, well, here's what happens. And he found where the areas were. And he said, when scars grow, they don't necessarily grow in the direction that the other fibers in your muscle go. He said, it's kind of like darning a sock. They just grow to fix that hole. And so what we can do is I can use a technique that will take care of any of the scar tissue that is not running in the same direction as the fibers in your muscle. And do you know, even though he told me it might take several weeks, the next morning I woke up pain-free for the first time in over a decade.
Interesting.
Isn't that? So I understand that scars stay with us, but the parts that cause us to react, cause me to react inappropriately, or to think that someone's insinuating something because I grew up in a very verbally difficult situation as well as violently, I can begin to relax more. I can begin to trust people more. Although I do tend to still be pretty cynical. But my heart is one that wants to trust people immediately. So I can also be naive. And so I have to...
which opens you up for further violation of some sort.
Yes. So that was a long and complex thing, but just in terms of even PTSD and
chronic
CPTSD.
Now, you know, I've heard this said of me so many times. Oh, you're strong, you can handle that. Oh, she's tough, she can handle that. The word resilience is used a lot. And it's appropriately used, because when you are beaten down by circumstances or a particular traumatic event or a series of traumatic events, you have the option to just let it beat you down, and you stay down and you don't fight back. But I think it's a little difficult to expect any form of survival if you do that, because you have to get up and get going, and how you do that is what is called resilience. It's not that, you know, you've got this Teflon where sticks and stones will break my bones, but words would never hurt them, or whatever. It's not that. That is not what resilience means. It doesn't mean you can throw anything at her. It won't faze her. No, what it really means is I've been beaten down enough times to where I know what it takes to survive. I know what it takes to fight back. And you don't always have what it takes, even though you know what it takes, or you may have what it takes, but not in this particular moment. It may be a while, and your resilience kicks in. Your resilience is your ability to bounce back, really. And so the degree to which you bounce back is progressive. It's progressive. So the day after the trauma, the day after he broke up your scar, you were doing a whole lot better. But you know what happens is that scar tissue can still start reforming in its unhealthy patterns.
Yes, and so I had to start doing exercises to strengthen my muscle and to stretch.
So a lot of that is prevention, you know. So once you get something taken care of that's unhealthy, an unhealthy pattern and an unhealthy thought process, you've got to actively work at making sure you don't slip back into that same pattern of behavior or pattern of thought.
And I think that that's part of the journey too. Part of the healing journey is that you then begin to catch yourself.
Right.
And you go, oh, wait, I know that this pattern of thought, this pattern of behavior, I'm beginning to sense some anxiety around this situation.
Right.
What is the cause of the anxiety?
Yeah.
And is that something I can do something about? Or something that I need to strengthen myself internally? Because, for example, when we're raising children and they're going through a difficult time as they're transitioning developmental stages, it can be very challenging.
Yes.
So we can't change the external situation,
Right.
although it's causing stress.
Yes.
But what can we do to care for ourselves so that we can be the person, the parent we want to be for them?
Right. And this brings me right to another term that is so related to this. It's called the window of tolerance.
Yes.
So what is the window of tolerance? And this is where we talk about the difference between different people, difference between me, difference between you and me, difference in how we respond to a certain stimulus. Some things may trigger me in some way and it may not faze you at all.
Right.
Okay, because the window of tolerance with regard to very specific events or even in a broader picture, just overall, your ability to handle stress and trauma can get narrower and narrower and narrower with repeated prolonged trauma, prolonged injuries, unhealed trauma. So what happens then is, like you said, when your husband said something and you snapped back, it's because your ability to handle that now is so minimal. Whereas if your window of tolerance was bigger and wider, it would just fit right in there somewhere. And you go, I didn't like that, but I know he didn't mean anything by it.
Right.
You know?
And I would recognize maybe even within myself, oh, this is because.
Yes.
And so
making a conscious effort to understand why it is you respond the way you do. Again, that's where a specialist comes in play for you to really understand what's going on.
And the other thing that can happen with the window of tolerance is that we rarely see all of the spheres of a person's life.
Right.
And the amount of stress, good or bad, that's going on for them. Yes, we do have this idealized version of always harmonious, loving, supporting relationships. And each one of us desires that to some extent. I mean, we don't want the difficulties of life inside our homes.
Absolutely.
Inside our bodies, inside our children's bodies or relationships. But so let's posit this. We have a person who looks bright and cheery on the outside. We don't know that their spouse has just received word that his company is downsizing.
Right.
Or her company is downsizing. If we're talking with a guy, we don't know that their child has been sick with just a regular old cold for 3 days running, but that means they're not sleeping at night, which means the parent is not sleeping at night.
Right.
We don't know that out of stress, they just ate an ice cream sundae for lunch instead of something healthy and nutritious.
Right.
And so we walk in and say, you know what's really bugging me? Now their window of tolerance is practically non-existent.
Right.
And so
how they respond to what you said has nothing to do with what you said.
Right.
It has everything to do with what they're going through.
What they're going through.
Right.
And yes.
Yeah. So speaking of all of these, we've talked about PTSD and chronic PTSD and resilience and window of tolerance. Debbie mentioned her battle with depression. And I have to tell you this as well, that depression is not something that just goes away overnight.
Right.
Depression is a long-term battle.
Yeah.
However, recognizing that you are either in a very deep depression or just teetering right on the edge of falling into the deep dark hole. If you recognize where you are, you can actively battle. Either you battle and try to fight from falling into the deep dark hole, or you work really, really hard to climb out of this deep dark hole and come back to the surface for air. That, my friends, is resilience. That is you engaging in enlarging your window of tolerance. There is no quick fix to anything. There are no one-size-fits-all answers to everything, but everything requires you to be cognizant of where you are at a given point in time, and then make some very active decisions on what you're going to do to not stay there, at least for too long.
And to call for help.
Call for help, reach out to your network, do whatever it takes, because trauma is not terminal. It's not here to stay.
Good.
It's not here to stay.
I like that. Yeah.
You can work your way through it.
It doesn't have to be.
Doesn't have to be.
Right.
So thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
We so love sharing all this information with you, and I hope you engage with us, comment on our videos, ask us your questions, give us your point of view, what have you.
And I hope it's helpful to just listen in as we talk, because these aren't scripted.
Absolutely. Totally unscripted. So thank you very much for joining us. We've enjoyed being here today, and we look forward to many more on our YouTube series, TNT. Goodbye.